This is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And with me today is my guest, Chris Copeland. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, Chris is our guest most every Wednesday to talk about the newest things at Corellian Publishing. But today we have a very different story based on an event that happened just a couple of hours ago. And we're going to go into that in just a moment. But first, let me remind you that, as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you happen to be watching on and take part live in the conversation. And we love when you do that. Chris, how are you today?
I'm
Or
doing
tonight, I suppose.
yes. It's getting 7 p.m. here in the Netherlands, and I'm doing well. I am very disappointed by today's story, and I'm hoping that as a community of pagans, we can come together during this time and discuss this and heal from this and decide how to move forward.
We want to say hello to Elio and Eric in the chat room. It's good to see you both.
Hello,
So
Elliot.
why don't you tell us what's going on?
And hello, Reverend Eric. Yes, I'm going to first just show you a rather startling clip. This is breaking news from Talk TV on YouTube. The Just Stop Oil group has attacked Stonehenge with orange spray paint earlier this afternoon. I will share my screen and show you the video that was taken on the scene. And I am having a bit of a trouble with the connection at the moment. There it goes. And as you can see, what's happening in the video is some protesters with Just Stop Oil have spray painted Stonehenge. This was a planned attack, planned 2 days before our summer solstice festival taking place here. And there were some brave pagans who stepped forward and tried to stop the protesters. And eventually the protesters were taken into custody today. I'll pause the video so we can go back. Feel free to continue watching the video on YouTube, but it is quite dramatic to watch that and tragic to see it.
Well, I think we would have to really look at this as being an attack, at least in part, on our community.
Yeah.
And it potentially has very negative effects for our community. And I'm using the wide definition of our community. But, a lot of pagan people regard Stonehenge as being very sacred to their practice and are in the habit of practicing there, especially at the summer solstice, which is in just a couple of days. So this is basically a terrorist attack against that upcoming religious celebration. And I think we really need to look at that organization, and we need to figure out a good course of action against it, so that this does not happen again. Because obviously, if damaging one of our sacred sites is successful for them, they'll go for another one. And the worst potential problem, and we want to say hello to Renee and Bimby in the chat room.
Hello.
One of the worst potential problems for pagans in the UK in particular, how are the custodians of this site going to react to this? For many years now, particularly people from a Druidic background have met at Stonehenge, especially for the solstices. And you have to wonder whether it's still going to be accessible to the public after this. It's obviously been damaged, although after many thousands of years, clearly it will survive the damage for what it is. But I think the larger damage may be in the accessibility. It certainly damages, I think, the security of our community.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we can afford to not look at it as what it is, an attack on us. And whatever they call themselves and whatever they claim their motivation is, their act is a terroristic act against our community.
And not just
And
our community. This is a World Heritage Site. This is against all of humanity.
that's true, but we can only speak to our own reaction.
Yes.
And we need to not let it drop.
And that's a very good point. It's kind of hard to, right now, at this point, figure out who to direct our frustration and our sadness and our anger at. Do we put it towards these individuals that actually picked up the spray can?
Yes, absolutely we do. Every individual.
Yes.
But also the people backing.
Exactly, where the money is coming from. And Just Stop Oil is actually funded by an oil heiress. So that's interesting to see. Now, she gives the reason for giving these. Her name is Aileen Getty, and she is the granddaughter of oil tycoon John Paul Getty. They are considered the 56th wealthiest family in America with a net worth of $5.4 billion. So you might wonder, why are these billionaires backing people who are committing crimes against humanity on our sacred spaces, crimes against our pagan community in particular?
Well, I
That's
think we need to look at this organization and seriously question what they claim they're doing. Because this woman apparently is very wealthy. She can afford to back this large organization. She could be backing scientific developments to actually fight the problem.
Exactly.
As opposed to terroristic acts.
And these
We want to
terroristic
say hello
acts.
to Tina and Martin and Mary in the chat room.
Good to see you. And these terrorist attacks go beyond just that, because they make our community look bad. And by our community, I mean every single human being that supports environmental activism, real, true environmental activism, rights for Gaia, protecting Mother Earth. And I don't think there's any other religion in the world that can in any way argue that they are more committed to that than
And I'm personally involved in a new project, Gaia Thrift, whose whole purpose has to do with environmental action in terms of dealing with landfills and so forth and finding better solutions to those. So this is very, very concerning. And hello to Steve in the chat room. I don't see any way that this organization can be looked at as doing anything but sabotaging that movement. This is not something that could be considered anything else, in my opinion.
Now, Just Stop Oil has apparently released a statement to the AP, according to Reverend Eric Hebert. The Just Stop Oil said that the paint was made of cornstarch and would dissolve in the rain. That is, I'm grateful for that. In all honesty,
If it's
I am
true.
grateful for that. If it's true, yes.
The fact remains, why would you do this?
Why would you?
And I'm sure their answer would be to call attention to the problem, but they're not calling positive attention to the problem. They're making environmental activists look crazy. And again, for the amount of money that's apparently going into this, they could be doing something constructive.
Yeah.
The other question, within, I would assume probably Saturday will be the day. I'm not entirely sure what they do at Stonehenge for the solstice, but we're within days of a major religious celebration. And, how are the people coming for that supposed to look at this, except as an attack on them? I think I mean, I think when it comes to the Getty heiress, we need to question whether she is actually working against her family's heritage or um, covertly supporting it by sabotaging the environmental movement.
It's a very
Um,
good question.
I cannot imagine that this sort of action produces any kind of positive result. It certainly doesn't for me. If I encounter anything from the Stop Oil movement, I'm going to react extremely negative to it after this event.
Absolutely.
So
This
they have certainly not gained any allies in me or anyone who respects my opinion.
And that's
Um,
very true here with their actions in the Netherlands.
mhm,
While some of them are absolutely positive, like the blocking of congested highways here that were largely congested with commercial traffic designed to make rich people richer, and I'm absolutely for those types of things. But then they also go into poor neighborhoods here and block people who are just trying to get to work in the morning and can't get through that area. That's a problem. When
and that's why I say this is actually an act of sabotage.
yes,
Because with the amount of money necessary to fund an organization of that size, you could also be working in positive ways that spread your message and gain people um, actually supporting it rather than alienating the people you're dealing with. When you disrupt a poor neighborhood, you're not converting those people to your point of view. I mean, there's no way that's going to be the result, and it's very much the act. If they actually believe what they're saying, it's very much the act of an entitled rich people to do something like that, who are not considering the result in poor people's lives.
exactly.
It's the kind of thing you'd expect a wealthy heiress to do, who has not dealt with actual life. Um, Now, Mary in the chat room says, I think it shows how scared they are of us pagans and they know how powerful we are. Well, this is one of those moments where we need to see ourselves that way. And I really think that as a group, we should be looking at this movement, Stop Oil, and seeing how we can stop it.
Exactly.
I mean, this is, in a manner of speaking, almost a declaration of war on our community, if you think about it.
It is a crime, and it's a crime against humanity. So my question to pagan lawyers that are out there that
Mm-hmm.
are, actively fighting every day for the rights of Gaia, um, what are the legal options for maybe larger organizations or individuals within the pagan community to bring this beyond just the British court, but
Mm-hmm.
really bring it right here to The Hague? And let's see what is actually going on. Let's get an investigation going on this Just Stop Oil group and
Mm-hmm.
see what's really going on and what their true motives are. And in addition to that, let's start putting some penalties on the group as a whole and the
Mm-hmm.
backers of this group as a whole, this oil heiress, and let's get that money into a trust that's actually going to do some good for the environment. Let's put on
Mm-hmm.
some punishing fines that can then go and actually do good for Gaia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this in the end is basically either an act of sabotage or a very childish act, not well thought out to get any kind of positive reaction.
And I do not want people to misinterpret that at all, because while there are lots of younger people that are involved in climate change groups,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of those involved with the Just Stop Oil group are middle aged or older. And that's
Okay.
an interesting bit of information that I think may be relevant to this. Perhaps these are individuals that are more easily coerced into things because they have more free time on their hand during retirement. Or, so as a pagan, I do have empathy for those who get sucked into those groups. because I've seen that happen in Christian faith. I've seen that happen even in our own faith in different areas. And I feel for those people that get pulled into it. They are still responsible for their actions. I'm not giving them a
Mm.
pass on what they did, but there are bigger fish to fry in this scenario.
And there are several different aspects here. But from my point of view, for us, the main aspect is the position our community is finding itself in. We've had a number of groups attacking pagan gatherings in the last year or so, literally breaking into public circles in pagan pride days, in events in Salem, now defacing what many of our people consider one of the most important pagan monuments. I don't see that we cannot look at this as a serious attack on our community. And I think if we choose not to, because there are going to be people who will say, "Oh, this isn't about us. This is something else." But if we choose to ignore this, we can't complain so much when there's more. And we have to see it, I think, as part of a larger movement. And we want to say hello to Black Crystal and to Nicholas.
Hi, Black Crystal. Hi, Nicholas. Good to see you both in the chat. And yet, no, I don't think I've seen you in here yet, but it's great to meet you, and blessings to you as well.
And Nicholas is a very nice man from Canada.
Wonderful. Our neighbors to the north.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, there are, of course, many different aspects to this. And that's true for so many things that happen. But I think for us as pagans, we really do need to put first the aspect that directly affects us.
Yes.
When it comes to politics, I usually avoid partisan politics on my programs, but I've often said that I'm basically a one-issue voter, and my one issue is pagan civil rights and related civil rights. I don't care about the economy if I can't take part in it.
Exactly.
I don't care about really much of anything if I myself am not an equal citizen. So I keep my eye on what directly affects me. And we can be in complete agreement on every other subject, but I will not vote for you if you are not supporting my right to be. To paraphrase William Baldwin, we can disagree and still love each other as long as what we disagree on is not my fundamental right to exist.
Exactly that. Yes. And this is an attack on our ability to connect with our spiritual site now. Who knows whether they will cancel or delay the ceremony, which is supposed to be held on the solstice. That there's a reason for it to be on this date and at this time. And while people not in our community may not understand the heightened energy right now, that pagans can sense and that pagans can interact with, we don't tell them how to interact with their God. And now a group has prevented us from interacting with ours.
Quite possibly, yes. And I'm not certain off the top of my head who is currently in possession of Stonehenge, but I believe it's the state, is it not?
Yes, the British Historical Society, whatever
that's what I thought.
Part is called. Yeah.
I know it had been in private hands for a long time, but I think I knew it had finally been handed over. But their primary duty is not to our community; it's to preserving this World Heritage Site.
Yes.
And for those pagans who revere this site, they have the complexity of the fact that we do not own it. we do not control it, which is what makes this even more of an attack on our community than if it were, say, a Roman Catholic cathedral. Because if it were a Roman Catholic cathedral, the Catholic community might very well view it as an attack on their community, but they own the cathedral. No one can tell them not to come in.
A better comparison is not the Roman Catholic Cathedral, but Vatican City itself, or Mecca itself. This is a place where modern pagans still go and actively worship. And
it is one of the major pilgrimage sites in the modern pagan movement. Certainly not the only one, but probably the single major one. And Mary says, I had the honor of visiting there several years ago. It was absolutely breathtaking. The recently invested Corellian First Priestess has made a pilgrimage there as well. I know a number of people who have.
And Reverend Melissa I've reached out to her for comment earlier, and she has this to say about it, just in a quick comment. She'll probably have a lot more to say about it, but right now she says, I'm struck by the senselessness of it and the entitlement of using the sacred as a weapon to draw attention. And I think that really sums it up, that entitlement part. Who are these people that think they can just go into our sacred space and cause fear and potentially permanent destruction? Hopefully, as Reverend Eric reported, that will be able to be taken care of with the next reign. But having that fear instilled in pagans that one of our sites may have been permanently damaged beyond repair. And in addition, if that stuff was not cornstarch or starch, if it had been toxic, it could seep into the ground. It could kill the flora and fauna nearby, bees and other insects. And hopefully it doesn't do that. I'm not sure if it is just cornstarch, but there's something in that cornstarch that's making it change color as well. And I worry about that component of it too.
Well, and Bimby in the chat room says, I've been seeing more and more instances of the British government trying to shut down this sacred site, and I hate to be conspiracist, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was a concerted effort to shut it down permanently. And that's what we as a community need to be in part aware of, that this could lead to one of the major pilgrimage sites of our movement being closed to us and to everyone else. It's not a minor incident, even if the paint washes off, because it could lead to the closing of the site. And it brings back that question, what is the real motivation here? I mean, they may say this is an attempt to bring attention to their cause, but does that make sense with critical thinking skills? Because this is not something that would bring positive attention. It's something that would only bring opposition. And so it raises the question, why are these people financing this and this kind of action? Is it really to advance climate change activism, or is it to subvert it?
Exactly right. And my concern is that pagans may be wondering out there, okay, well, what can we do if this group is not working, if we can't go to this group? Because I myself have been to one of their protests before, and I won't go to another one after this. However, there may be pagans that are actively involved with these groups today, maybe small cells in their own communities. What do they do now? What is their response to this? And my advice to them is that we need to start a pagan climate change activist group, and a big one that is international, like Just Stop Oil is, but with small cells around the world. In a way, they do operate quite similar to a terrorist group. They do have these small groups that decide locally what actions they will do, or maybe a bigger person in that hierarchy sends down a message of some ideas to do. But that can be done for the good of the world as well. That can be done
Mhm.
for actually helping Gaia. We could organize, we could start our own protests that actually do something for the environment. And the protests, I've been to a lot of protests over the years since I was a teenager. And the protests I've seen that worked the best involved radical kindness. Actually
I would
going
have to
out into
agree
the
with that.
community. Yeah, go out into the community and do something good for it, and they're
Hmm.
going to listen to you while you're doing that good thing. If it's
Hmm.
planting a garden, a community garden, neighbors are going to come in and start asking you about it.
Hmm.
People are going to want to know why you're doing this, why you're doing your own little effort to make the world a better place. And then
Hmm.
that will give them the idea to do the same thing. And that's how it spreads. We start
Well,
small and in our
yeah.
area.
In a way, this corresponds to what I've been talking about this week about focusing on the good rather than on the bad. And I think you're completely correct that if you want to gain people's support, um, you don't do it by attacking them. You do it by showing them why it's the right thing to do, by showing them that you're good people, by building bridges, not by attacking the things they love, not by disrupting their daily lives because of your entitlement, because you think they owe you their attention. You need to show them why this is a good cause. And acts like this do not at all make that um, make that message. And I think for us as a minority religion, we need to remember that too. Um, I've talked about this on many occasions. And my friend Pete Pathfinder years ago, when he first moved the Aquarian Tabernacle headquarters to Index, Washington, what he did is he first went out and introduced himself to all the neighbors as Pete, as a person, and he built bridges with them. And as they found out about the Aquarian Tabernacle, they already knew him, and he had already made positive connections, which made it much easier for the headquarters to be there than if he had just busted in and said, "You must accept us." It was diplomacy. It was um, it was common sense. With something like this, I mean, chances are we'll never know the real motivation here. We can only speculate. Um, Looking at it, I do not perceive any way to take seriously that this is anything but one, an attack on our community, and two, an attempt to subvert and discredit the environmental action community. I don't see any way that anyone could have thought this would advance the movement. Um, and I think that as a community, we must be very aware of that going forward, and we need to be aware that we're being attacked on many fronts. Um, I will admit this isn't one that I would necessarily have expected, but then I really wasn't all that aware of this particular group. Um, but not every anti-pagan group necessarily displays itself as such, and we need to be ready to defend our community or not be surprised when we turn out to be defenseless. Um, it is it's sad that we have to think that way, but we do. And again, we've seen several attacks on pagan religious gatherings in the last couple of years, with people literally barging into ceremonies that were being held in public. Um, and we need to develop increasingly effective strategies of how to deal with this, how to prevent it, and also how to respond to it, because um, it's not going to just go away if it's being successful. And hello to Nikki in the chat room, who
Hi, Nikki.
Nikki says fear mongering to control us, possibly. Well, yes, that's part of it. I think part of it is to try to force us back into our closet, so to speak, try to force us out of the public square, try to disrupt our ability to come together. And
try to
we've been,
disrupt our ability to actually protect Gaia.
yeah,
This creates tension between climate change activists who are pagans, which are, most of us are, and climate change activists who are not pagans. And that tension doesn't need to be there, because we do in the end share the same goals, whether we're doing it for reasons of believing that the world is sacred, or simply for the fact that it is our home. Either way, it means the same word. Our home is sacred. And we should be working together with groups that are actively doing the right things. So I don't want to discourage people from getting involved in local groups, but just check who is funding those local groups. And if there's not a good one in your area, exactly, and look at their behavior. Does their behavior match up with pagan ethics? And if not, then maybe that's not the right place for a pagan to be. And if there is no group in your area to join, then start one. And you can start small. The last Pagan News segment we did, I talked about seed bombs. That is a very active way to get involved, to create real change, and fairly immediate change. Within a month or two, that area can be greened up for the first time. There are different ways to get involved, and there are different ways to support. If you're maybe homebound and can't get out, then maybe start an online group and help people get registered to go into neighborhoods. There are lots of different things we can do. Pagan World is a great place to start organizing across the pagan community, and find people in your area for that. So there are methods to get out there and do some real change. Don't get discouraged by this.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in the future. And this weekend, we will be having the second broadcast of Pagan News, where we will have more news stories for you. On Friday, I'll be doing my weekly roundup of stories. I'm sure I'll be talking about this, as well as some other things that are going on. And with that, I thank you for joining us. Let us close with our prayer, as we always do. And I'll be back tomorrow to talk with you some more. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do in our lives, and we ask you to help us to be vigilant about the freedoms of our community, and not to allow them to be chipped away by those who oppose our mere existence. Help us to stand up for ourselves, help us to continue to pursue our rights, and help us to secure them. Help us to fight against those who attack our religious observations and our religious sites. And let us not be lulled into a false sense of security, or to accept false excuses for why certain things are done, but to see them clearly for what they are, and to take positive and practical actions in response. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you are always with us, from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you again tomorrow.